That's right. Welcome in. Welcome back, folks, to the reaction from outside Notre Dame land to Notre Dame's 2025 schedule has been predictably negative, coming from a lot of different areas of the internet. Let's investigate whether it's fair or unfair. Maybe I agree with some of these takes, but overall, I don't think I do. Edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps Yanni Boy out as well. Notifications on it where you don't miss nothing. Twitter, search bar Always Irish, or at Always Irish 8. Emails alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only. Anywhere you want it, you can get it. If you don't want to see my face, nobody blames you. Call-in lines 312-988-15. Dial it up. Tell Uncle Johnny all you've heard and seen. Notre Dame Fighting Irish brought to you by SI. Read all about it. Patreon.com/AlwaysIrish. Former captain, leading tackler Mike Goolsby, and Coach Jared Clark breaking it all down. We got some fun changes we're going to implement. Now we're in the offseason. We can breathe and stretch a little bit. We got some interesting things coming your way. Thanks to everybody that's over there. All right. I believe it was last week, Notre Dame's 25 schedule was officially released. All the dates, knowing when you're playing everybody. Let's review it. At Miami, off week. Home, Texas A&M. Home, Purdue. At Arkansas. Home for Boise. Home for NC State. Home for USC. Off week. Back end of the schedule. Wake yourself up if you fell asleep. At Boston College, yawn. Navy at home, yawn. Pitt at home, yawn. Syracuse at home, yawn. Tell me you think they're going to be good all you want, yawn. And then at sleepy old Palo Alto with 14 people in the crowd to end the year, yawn. Yawn, 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 yawn. Okay. The reaction to this from the outside of the Notre Dame media and fan base, it's just what a joke schedule. I can't tell you how many media people or fan accounts that follow other teams that are saying above the tweet, and they're going, if our team had this, we'd go 12-0 every year. Just the whole thing. The whole Notre Dame shouldn't be allowed to be in the playoff. You got to force them to join a conference. They shouldn't be allowed to do that, all that kind of stuff. And again, my argument with that is, you're mad at the wrong people. Why are you mad at Notre Dame? You should be mad at all these conference people that allowed Notre Dame to be in the playoff without being in a conference full time. Don't be mad at us. We've been doing it the same way 100 years. Don't be mad at us. Be mad at the other people for not forcing us to do it the way you want. All right. Let's get into this. I got 10 bullet points about Notre Dame scheduling that I want people to consider. Some of it, a little bit of it, maybe I agree with some of the complaints, but some of this is just, you ain't getting your facts right. Number one, listen, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it a million times. If you hate Notre Dame in your heart, you will always default to finding a reason to hate Notre Dame in your heart. That's just how this goes. If you hate Notre Dame, you're going to find a reason to keep hating Notre Dame. Okay? I've said this forever. For the people that hate Notre Dame, they wake up every day and that's in their mind. The only schedule that will be accepted by these people is 4 games with Ohio State on the road at the Horseshoe, 4 games against Georgia on the road at their place, and 4 games against Alabama, not now, peak Nick Saban era, on the road. There is the only 12-game schedule that these Notre Dame people will accept. That's it. It doesn't matter that you just beat Georgia a few weeks ago. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to those people. It's like, yeah, but you didn't play an SEC schedule every single week, so it doesn't matter. Like, if you hate Notre Dame and you're determined to hate Notre Dame, you're going to find a reason. That is the only 12-game slate that is acceptable to people that hate Notre Dame. Nothing else is going to ever make them happy. Number 2, This is something that should be talked about more and that I wish Notre Dame got more credit for. And they never do, and it's rarely talked about. Notre Dame should get credit for how many different styles of play they face and must prepare for in any given year. SEC talent and speed and size, hard-nosed Big Ten approach to football, used to be a Pac-12 style of play, spread it out, throw it around a little bit. The ACC agreement and that kind of play, plus your option academies. Why doesn't and why shouldn't Notre Dame get any credit for having to adjust and prepare for all these different styles of play week to week and be able to win against any of them? Notre Dame's got to be built very neutrally and well-rounded to be able to adapt and win in all these different style of play environments. I wish Notre Dame got more credit for that diversity. Number 3, this argument about Notre Dame and independence and all this shouldn't be allowed or whatever. Your team could be independent too. I don't understand why this is never spoken about. Notre Dame does not have some exemption that allows them to be independent and nobody else, and it's only for Notre Dame. Why isn't your team independent? If you think it's that much of a cheat code, you think it's that easy, you don't want to share any of your revenue or whatever, why isn't your team going independent if it's that easy to do and such an advantage? Anybody could do it. Go for it. Tell your school to do it. If you can't do that, that is a you problem, not a Notre Dame problem. If your school doesn't have the brand reach to do it, the money to do it, like, not our problem. The ability to find other teams that'll schedule you, even if you're not in, if you can't do it for any of those reasons, that's not our problem. That's a you problem. So I just think it's weird how everybody complains about your team could do it too. And if they can't due to resources or your region, a more regional fan base, not national, you don't have the money, whatever, not our problem, man. Life isn't fair. Deal with it. But I always want everybody to be reminded, anybody can be independent. Why don't you have your school do it if you think it's such an advantage? Number 4. This is a really weak-sided argument. Anybody that tweets this argument is being disingenuous or they're just not smart. The argument is that it's unfair. Notre Dame gets to keep all the playoff money. What was it? $20 million, I think they earned. And the argument is that it's unfair. Notre Dame gets to keep all that money or whatever, right? Here's the other side of the argument no one brings up. Yes, Notre Dame gets to keep all that playoff money, $20 million or whatever. However, why doesn't anyone mention the risk in this is that if Notre Dame misses the playoff, they get $0. You don't just get a few million for being a bottom feeder in the Big Ten and the good teams make the playoff and you get some crumbs. No one wants to mention the downside risk of this. It's the ultimate betting on yourself risk reward. You do it this way and make it, you get the spoils. You do it and you fail, you get nothing. No one wants to mention that. They only want to mention the high side. It's a disingenuous argument. Number 5, as far as Notre Dame's scared to schedule good teams or whatever, I hear it and read it all the time. You had recent series and not that long ago history with Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. You played Clemson a lot in the ACC back when they were really good in running that. A&M has the oil money to be competitive yearly. Alabama's coming onto the schedule soon. This year, you're opening at Miami, and then your second game is Texas A&M. I'm sorry, man. Like, sometimes I don't know what you want other than the 12 games I put out for you in the beginning of this. It's just, it feels to me like Notre Dame's trying to get around and play teams from different conferences and whatever. And they've had series with these big brands showing they're not afraid to schedule them. It's just you're not going to be able to convince anybody of anything other than it's got to be 4 with Georgia, 4 with Ohio State, 4 against Alabama, all on the road to make anybody happy. Saban, Alabama, not now. It's got to be that. So it doesn't appear to me like Notre Dame's scared to schedule these teams, man. I named a bunch of these big brands we either just played and had a series with or are in or have coming up. Number 6. It is not Notre Dame's fault. Some big brands on the schedule are not as good at football as they should be. Specifically, recently, Florida State and USC come to mind. Like, it's not Notre Dame's fault. Florida State went from 13-0 and awesome to one of the worst teams in America overnight. How is that our fault? They're already on the schedule. How is that our fault that they literally went from like perfect to one of the worst teams in America in a year? And it's our fault? They should be better. It is not our fault. USC is not a top 5 team year in and year out. That's USC's fault. Those are big brand name helmets on Notre Dame's schedule. Why is it our fault? They're not that good. And it's so disingenuous to act like Notre Dame waits to see that Florida State is good and then schedules them. No, man. With very few exceptions, most of these games are scheduled far in advance, years in advance. How are we supposed to know Florida State's going to be one of the worst teams in America? It's Florida State. That's their problem, their fault. So I just wish there was more understanding that it isn't up to us to make the helmets on our schedule be better at football. I don't know what you want me to do about that. Number 7. Here's something I do kind of agree with, the complaints with this schedule. So this is something I will agree with the complaints, and I think Notre Dame fans have the same complaint. The ACC is lame. The ACC is lame. And look at the back half of our schedule in 25. Like, that conference is boring. Boring football, not a lot of top-end talent, not a lot of top-end teams. I know Notre Dame's half in bed with them. Boring, lame conference. And they know that too. And that's why they're trying to pass this new ACC scheduling thing where Notre Dame would play 2 of Miami, Florida State, and Clemson every year. Because I think everybody's sick of the boring ACC. So that's why they're trying to force these brand names to all have to play each other with the proposed model of Notre Dame playing 2 of those 3 every year. So would I wish we had this deal with the Big Ten instead? Yeah, I would. So I kind of agree with you that the ACC is currently constituted as a yawn fest. I agree with that part of it, and I think Notre Dame fans do too. So at least if this scheduling thing passes, you're going to play 2 of the better brands, and then you see how good they are, I guess. So I do agree with that one. The ACC's lame and boring. Not a lot of top-end talent. Number 8. As far as Notre Dame's independence, didn't they just prove the proof of concept could still work in the modern era? Like, Notre Dame got a home playoff game, made a deep run, got to keep all the money. Like, there used to be a question of, like, can Notre Dame make the independence model work for them? Or does never having a bye make it harder for them to compete? Or whatever? Didn't we just get the answer to this? Seemed like the independence model worked pretty well for Notre Dame. You ended up in a great spot, resting up, not getting the bye, but having a home game. You made a run. You didn't have to split the money. Seems like that model still works. Right now, there's no reason for Notre Dame to think about doing anything else. You just proved that model works. Number 9, default reminder, like I already mentioned. These schedules, with the exception of like the final game added, are on the schedule for years. It's not like Notre Dame waits to see who's bad and then sits there and goes, what brand name can we put on the schedule? But only when they're going to be bad. That's not how it goes, man. People need to remember most of these schedules, except for like 1 or 2 games, are on there way ahead. Way ahead. So acting like Notre Dame waits till a team's bad and adds them is very disingenuous. Here's number 10. Might be the biggest lesson I've learned from Notre Dame's journey to the championship game, but falling short. Notre Dame's only going to get proper respect here if you win the championship. All those outlets have played nice with Notre Dame to get clicks, building up the title game. And then once Notre Dame loses it, it's like, oh yeah, same old big game, Notre Dame, they don't have the talent, they don't belong. It all flipped and they got back on the anti-Notre Dame script after they needed the couple-week run-up to build up the title game or whatever, right? Notre Dame's only going to get credit if they win the championship, in my opinion. Even then, people are going to discredit the schedule or the independence or whatever. But at that point, who cares what anybody on the internet says if you're holding the trophy? They could say whatever they want at that point. Isn't going to affect my mood, right? So that's what I got on the schedule, you guys. So most of it is anti-Notre Dame slant. The argument that the ACC is boring and that part of the schedule usually sucks, I do agree with that one. And they're trying to fix it by making Notre Dame play their brand names. But everything else, I think I went over all the different ways. It's short-sighted thinking. If you wake up every morning bound and determined to hate Notre Dame, you're going to find a way to hate Notre Dame. What do you guys think? Let me know.